Hello, welcome back to Chats with Jax. I brought my tissues because this topic is going to be a very vulnerable topic. We are going to be talking about how I grew up without a father and what it felt like for me when he passed away. This topic is going to require a lot of vulnerability from me. I talk about shame. I talk about sadness, realization, and just kind of being naive. And I will most likely cry in some of these pieces. And I'm okay with it because I've gone to therapy. It has been a little over a year that my dad has passed away. So if you guys don't know, my dad passed away November 3rd, 2023, 3 days before my 29th birthday. We are going to talk and discuss the growing up without him part, and then how it felt for me after he passed. And it's important to realize that going to talk about how everything I felt before my dad passed away. And I'm going to have a shift in perspective and change after he passed away. So growing up, my dad was not the dad that didn't show up on the weekend. Like, he wasn't the guy that promised that he'd be there for me and then didn't. So I didn't have that type of trauma. In fact, I have to be honest with you, I didn't really feel like I needed or wanted a dad growing up. I was a mama's girl and I knew who my dad was growing up. I knew who he was. I just remember him being in and out of jail. There was no true relationship there. I didn't feel like I needed a relationship with my dad. I was okay with what I had already. Like, I was content. I had a grandpa, not that he could replace the role of a father, because a father is supposed to be there every day and be present with you. And, that's at least what I think. And my grandpa did what he could, and he did the best that he could. I love him so much. And he taught me a lot. And it was nice having that male figure there. I also want to say that I don't want anybody to feel bad for me, especially when it comes to my family. My Lopez side or my mom. Like, I'm okay now. I went to therapy for this. I've talked about it. So I remember very small pieces of my dad. My dad's side of the family is really big on Christmas. Really, really big. And I knew that. That's like the only thing I knew about my dad's side, is that I would get this big black garbage bag of gifts on Christmas and be like, oh, this is from your dad's family. And it'd be like, oh my gosh, like, I'd get so many gifts and it'd be really, really cool, especially as a child, but I didn't know them. My mom and my grandpa would try to drop me off with my dad at his family's ranch growing up. And I know probably as an adult, they just wanted me to have a relationship with my dad, but I hated going there. And it's not that my family was rude to me or they didn't like me. I just felt uncomfortable and out of place because I didn't know anybody. So I would have to go over there, and my mom would take me and I would be like, Mom, please. Like, I'd get so sad. Like, I did not want to go. And the only thing I can remember is literally just going up there, crying, seeing my dad, and then going off to go play. And it wasn't often that happened. Like, I have a few different memories, right? But it wasn't until 2005 when my grandma passed away, which was my dad's mom. She passed away, and that's when I got close to my dad's side of the family. I knew I always had a sister, but I never met her. And I think that's when I'm pretty sure that's the first time I met my sister was in 2005. And I was in 5th, 6th grade. And I meet her for the first time, and we do get kind of close, but she lives in Sacramento. And my 2 twin cousins is who I get extremely close with my dad's side of the family. I'm telling you, I became so inseparable with them. I would only go to my dad's side of the family if they were there because I felt super comfortable with them. I'm in 6th grade now. I'm getting a little bit older. And I do want to say something. I never felt bad about my experience. I never felt bad that I didn't have a dad. It didn't define me. It didn't make me. It didn't break me. I felt okay. I felt fine. And the thing about me is that I am a huge empath, okay? I am a very, very empathetic person. And I've been that way ever since I can remember. Elementary school, people would be mean and I'd be like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? How can I help you? Like, I always just wanted to help people. And I felt like at a young age, I had a huge heart. I'd be telling my mom, and we were poor, okay? We were very low income. We grew up in the hood. Whatever I had, I wanted to give to others because I felt like I always had it Even though we had less, I felt like we always had a little bit better than others, you know? I'd be telling my mom, like, I need to go drop this bag of clothes off to this girl who wears the same outfit every single day because I need her to stop getting made fun of. You know, I'd be telling my mom, we'd watch that one home improvement show, like, is it Home Improvement, where they go and like a low income family would get a whole house rebuilt, and it was like such a beautiful experience. I would be calling them and trying to get this girl to get a brand new house because they lived in a small shack. Like, not funny situation that happened. It's just funny. I was just so empathetic. Like, it's kind of crazy to me how much I thought about others. So basically what I'm trying to say, because it's going to make sense later, is that I always felt bad for people. Their circumstance was bigger than mine. Always. And I never felt bad for myself. Never felt bad. I never felt bad for me. I never felt bad for little Jackie. So I mentioned that my dad's mom passed away, and that was like 5th, 6th grade. And I remember my dad not doing well after this happened. My dad kind of stopped showing up to the ranch when I would go and hang out with my cousins. And I would be curious, like, oh, is like my dad here, you know, but like not care at the same time. Like, I cared, but didn't care. I wouldn't go, you know, crying about it or anything like that. From what I understand, my dad was extremely close to his mom, and it kind of put him in a spiral. I think in 7th grade, I was getting home from a cheer competition. We were at Save Mart, and my dad passes right by me and my mom. And he's like, passed by, looks at me, and he can tell he's on something. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I wasn't really knowing what drugs were or anything like that. He passes by, turns around, looks at my mom, says, "Hey, how are you?" And then looks at me, and he's like, "And who is this? Who are you?" Well, my mom said, like, "What do you mean, who is this?" Okay, if I start crying, just know I wasn't sad at that moment. I'm sad because I have a daughter now, and it's just like I would never want her to experience this. So he said, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh, wait, like, got chicken, right? Like gallina or something like that." And I was like, "Huh?" And I was just like dazed and confused. Like, I didn't even understand. So my mom was like, "Let's go, Jackie." So we just walk away, go finish our business. And I felt bad, like that my dad didn't know who I was. Ever since that moment, I felt like so sad for him. Okay. So 7th, 8th grade go by. I'm a freshman. Now I think I'm a sophomore. And my dad, I hear that he's not doing good, that he's on drugs, and he's, you know, an alcoholic. And I know that he's living at this charros place that my family is a part of, and that he works there. So I was so empowered to be like, okay, if my dad doesn't know who I am, I'm going to make him know who I am. Like, I wanted to change him because I was very involved in high school. I loved cheer. I loved gymnastics. I loved ASB. I liked like being involved. Like, I was a really good kid, you know? And I just felt like if he knew who I was, like maybe that like he'd want to be a part of my life. And, so, and I don't remember crying about this, okay? I'll be honest with you. I don't remember. I just remember being like happy-go-lucky like about it. Like, I remember being like, I know what I can do. Like, very naive and just being like, I know what I'm going to do for my dad. Like, I got all my pictures from, nobody knows this, by the way, 6th, 7th, 8th, and freshman year, and like a progress of me. And I wrote him a letter, and I was like, I'm going to give this to him one day. And it's like, hey, Dad, like, this is me. This is me, Jackie. Like, this is me, Jackie. I'm in this, and this. I just want you to get to know who your daughter is. So, I couldn't go through with it though. I couldn't go through with it because something made me afraid of him, and not in the way like he's never yelled at me or cussed at me, but I was afraid of this stranger. I was afraid of this person. Like, I knew he was my dad, but I didn't have that connection. Never had a connection with someone being my dad, you know? So it felt really weird and off to me. I have this letter. I never give it to him, but it's like stacked away and like pictures and stuff like that of school. Maybe I was a freshman, not a sophomore, when I was thinking about this. I wanted to drop off those pictures. Okay. It was my freshman year. I remember this. And it was Father's Day. And I wanted my mom to take me to go see my dad and at the Charros. And I wanted to tell him Happy Father's Day. I wanted to give him this card and I wanted to give him these pictures of me. So she takes me. My mom never like said no to. Let me say something really quick too. I think the reason why like I have like a lot of hope for people and like a lot of like, I truly feel that it takes energy to be like a bad person. Like it takes like you have to be like so mad at the world to be angry. Like you have to, like you know what I mean? Like it costs nothing to be nice. Okay. It costs nothing to be nice. And one thing about my mom always growing up, she always said that my dad, like before him being like this person, like when she met him, that like he was the most amazing person. And I've always have known this about my dad. People have, not just my mom, everyone said that David, which is my dad's name, he would do anything for you. He'll give you the shirt off his back, like to make sure that you're okay. And he would be there for you. And like he was like a really, really good guy. And so I always had like this thing like, okay, my dad, yeah, maybe he didn't recognize me, but because like this, like at a young age, you know, I'm recognizing that this drug, you know, this addiction has taken over his life and he's not the person that everyone, you know, wants him to be. So I've always known this about my dad is that like he had a heart of gold. Okay. And my mom would always tell me that like, she's like, you remind me so much of David. Like you have a heart of gold. Like you just think of others so much, you know? And guess like I held on to that. Like there's some good in this man. Like there is some good somewhere. I just have to find it, you know? And I don't want to give up on him. It's Father's Day. We drive over there and I'm nervous. I'm freshman and I feel the same way that I felt like as a little girl driving up that road to see him because I'm so nervous. But this time because I want to have the interaction. And I get off. He hears the car. He comes out. And I was like, hi, I just wanted to come visit you and say Happy Father's Day. And he like looks at me. He's like, come on, let's go talk to your mom. I'm like, okay. He talks to my mom and he's just like, hey, do you think you can give me a ride? And my mom's like, I feel so bad for my mom too, that like she had to see like her kid go through this, you know? She goes, David, like Jackie's here to see you on Father's Day, you know? Like she wants to say hi to you. She has something to give you. And he's like, yeah. But like, he just starts rambling and going off. I'm like, okay, my dad is still not doing well, you know? So I get in the car, we end up leaving, and I'm like, okay, like that's it. Like I'm going to have to stop trying right now. I'm going to have to stop trying because this is not okay for me anymore. Then I think I turned 16 the year, I think I was a sophomore at 16 or I was a junior at 16. Well, I'm with my cousins and I'm walking down the street. My cousins, different cousins, not the twins on my dad's side. I'm walking and we're at the corner store and I see a front page news article saying that my dad got arrested. And I laugh because I'm so naive. I don't know. I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, like you'll never guess what, like my dad's on the front page of an article and he got arrested. Like, wow. Like, I don't know why I was laughing or why I thought it was funny, but I did. And my mom was mad. My mom was so angry with me. She's like, who told you? I said, what do you mean? I saw it in the article. She's like, no, somebody told you. Well, I guess my mom knew about this already. And she told my family not to tell me because she didn't want me to be hurt about it. And I was mad at my mom because I was like, I'm 16 years old. Like I can handle it. But like, obviously now she just wanted to protect me. I've already been hurt enough, you know? And I was mad that like she was that angry about it. So that was 16 years old. So after that incident, my dad was actually put away for a while. He was in jail and then he got sent to like a halfway facility, I believe, and a Tescadero. And he was there. My family would ask me like, do you want to come with us to go see him? And I'm like, no, like I'm okay. Like, I don't know if I can handle that or if I can stomach that. You know what I mean? So I would never go. So I think my dad was put away for maybe like 4 years, maybe 4 years. And when he got out in like 2014, maybe 2014, I remember he was out, and the first time I saw him was at a Christmas at my dad's side of the family. And he was like socially awkward, like he doesn't like know how to be around me. He's like, oh, hey, mija, like, hi. I'm like, hi, like, and that was it. Like, I'd give him like a hug, and that was all. And then 2015, he's doing good. I'm hearing that he's doing really well. Got an apartment, he was working, and he's talking to his family, and everything is just going really well for him. So I was like, maybe this is like a good time for me to be in his life. So 2016 comes around again, and from 2015 to 2016, I have some type of relationship with my dad. We're texting. I have his number. He can call me. And I think sometimes, like, I was trying to find messages when he passed away, but I'd be like, oh, text me when you get home, or are you okay? Do you need anything? Like, kind of like a casual relationship. Nothing major though, right? We're not, like, if I were to go around him, it's because I was around him with family. I wasn't around him by myself. 2016, June comes around, it's Father's Day, and I want to take my dad out for Father's Day. I was nervous. I felt like, again, like, not like scared, but like, because I built some trust with him. I didn't think obviously that he was going to hurt me, but I was just scared. Maybe I was scared for like disappointment or sad, like, I hope he doesn't disappoint me again in that way. So this is 2016. So how old am I? I'm like 21, I think. Maybe. I don't know my years. So I take him out for Father's Day, and I ask him, I said, where do you want to go? I'll take you anywhere you want. And he goes, I want to go to McDonald's. And I hate McDonald's. I hated McDonald's, but I took him anyway because he wanted to go there. And I picked him up all by myself, and it felt so good. Like, we would talk, and we like laughed, and he said jokes, and it was fun. I took my only picture with him that day, and we looked just alike in that picture. But I told myself, like, I have no room in my heart for hate. I don't hate that he wasn't there. Like, he was sick. He couldn't be there for me. So I don't have the room in my heart. I don't have the anger in me. After that, I think he went a little downhill, not because we went out, but I would talk to him, but then a few months later, he would leave me voicemails like, why aren't you answering my phone? And blah, blah, blah. And I always said I didn't have daddy issues. Okay. Because I didn't know what daddy issues were. I thought daddy issues meant that like you were promiscuous and that like you would I don't know. I thought daddy issues meant like, yeah, you were promiscuous and you wanted men, and I wanted the opposite. I didn't even want a man to touch me. Okay. So I found out later I did have daddy issues, but I would cut people off. Okay. Like, my dad calls me and he's acting like that with me. And he's like, I'm your dad, answer your phone, something like that. And I was like, you don't talk to me that way, And I was mad. And I ended up just hanging up and not talking to him ever again. Well, a few months later, I find out that like something happened with his apartment, and my dad is living on the street again. But this time, like, he's actually on the street. So it's 2017. I'm in a relationship now with Kenny, but I didn't get in a relationship with him till like November, December of 2017. And I haven't talked to my dad. I never saw him. And my sister, she lives in Madera, not my sister from my dad's side, but she would always tell me, like, oh, I saw your dad today on Gateway. So if you're from Madera, if you're not, there's a main street in Madera, and it's called Gateway, and takes you all the way down. And I guess he would hang out over there by this gas station. My sister, my cousins, they would always tell me like, oh, I saw your dad today. And I was like, really? Every time that I drove to Madera, I would always take the long way. I'd get off the first exit of Madera, and I'd go straight down Gateway just to see if I'd be able to see him. And I don't know what I would have done if I saw him. I don't know if I would have said hi, but I kind of just wanted to see him to know like, oh, he's okay. After this, I see that my dad is getting locked up a lot, and it's just like quick and release. And I'm just like, oh, wow. Like, it was almost like good for me because I felt like, oh, he's okay. Like, he's alive. Like, he's fine. It wasn't until November 3rd that I got the phone call. It was Kenny's playoff game. And I'm like so excited. I'm running late to the game. It's in Bakersfield. I'm walking into the game. My mother-in-law has my daughter, has Penny, and she's ahead of me. I get this phone call, and it says 559-674 number. And I'm like, it is almost 8 o'clock. Nobody should be calling me from a 559-674 number. This looks important. So I answer, and it's loud. It's crazy. It's a playoff game. I'm walking in, and I say, hello. Hi. She's like, hi. Is this, my like heart is like pumping right now because reliving this moment was like really tough for me. And I didn't know it affected me this bad until he passed away. I get a phone call and it says, hi, is this Jackie? Is this Jackie Lopez? And I'm like, yeah, this is Jackie. David Lopez, like, your dad has passed away. And I couldn't hear her. This was honestly such a cold call. Okay, like it was the coldest call. Like there was no empathy from this person. I don't think you're supposed to have empathy when you call people and let them know that they have passed away because you have to be like strong, I guess. But I don't know how those people do. I would have been crying on the phone telling somebody that their person passed away. I was like, what? I couldn't hear it. And she's like, David Lopez, your father, he passed away earlier today. And like my heart sank, like I wanted to fall to my knees. I felt so sick. I felt sick. I was like, what do you mean? Okay. She's like, you're next of kin. You're the next of kin. And we need to tell you before we give any information over to any family. I freaked out. I stayed behind. I went to a quiet spot. I called my mom. I let her know that he passed away. And then I called my aunt, which is his sister's. And I said like, what, my dad passed. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, I guess on his driver's license, he has one of his sister's addresses. And the sheriffs went to their house and said, hey, he passed away, but we can't talk to you about any further details if you're not next of kin. Next of kin, he has a daughter in Sacramento and he has a daughter here in Madera. So I call my sister too, as well. I don't think nobody has told her. So I called her after I called my mom. And then I called my aunt, and it was just really eerie. My mother-in-law came and walked to me. She's like, are you okay? What's going on? And I was like, my dad passed away. And she was like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry, you know? And she gave me a hug and she was like, he loved you very much. And I felt confused when she said that. I never heard that. I never heard that before. The next day I spend time with my dad's side of the family. We're looking at pictures. We're getting together. We're mourning. We're looking at things. And I'm looking at all his pictures. And in a weird way, I feel like I finally got to know my dad after his death, because I get to look at all these baby pictures. I get to see that, you know, he was in sports, and I look at his report card, and it was really cool. Like, it was nice to see that, like, I don't know, like, it humanized my dad in a way that, like, my dad was just a kid. Like, he was just a kid, and it got taken away from whatever, like, the drugs or the alcohol. As time went on, we ended up having his funeral a month later. But during that time, we're looking at pictures. I'm going through my dad's things, and he doesn't have much, but he kept, you know, some letters and stuff like that. But a couple of incidents that, like, made me, like, really think and, like, how it affected me. Because at first I was having a good time. Like, I was looking at everything, and I was really happy knowing that I got to see all of my dad's stuff. And still I'm grateful for it. But we're looking at pictures, and there's no pictures of me and him as a baby or as a kid or anything like that. There's nothing. I'm like this non-existent person. And I see a lot with my sister Audrey. She is a few years older than me. I see a lot, but she was more involved in my dad's side of the family. Like, she from birth, like, she grew up, because my dad was actually married to her mom, I believe. They knew her throughout her whole life. All these pictures, and my sister, I don't really know how she feels about it, but it's not my story to tell. But she has these pictures. I'm like, oh, Audrey, look at this picture of you and, you know, you and dad. And she'd be like, I don't really like that picture. Like, it brings bad memories or something like that. Like, and I don't know why. Like, I don't know why, but she had a lot more than I did. I only had one picture, and it was the picture that I took at McDonald's on Father's Day in 2016. She told me, she was like, hey sis, why don't you just ask your mom and see if she has any pictures? And I was like, you're right. Like, let me do that. And I text my mom and I said, hey mom, can you find any pictures of me and my dad, please? And my mom goes, Jackie, like, I'm so sorry, but I don't think I have any. And I'm confused. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have any? Like, where was my dad? Like, I started getting curious now. I'm like, wait a minute. Did my dad know who I was? Like, was my dad like, these are questions and thoughts that I've never had in my life. But then I start asking, like, Mom, was my dad in the hospital room with you? Did my dad know about me? Or when did my dad know about me? Or like, what's going on? Like, I was so confused. I never asked any of these questions in my life until he passed away. Because I'm confused why I don't have any pictures of my dad at all. Like, if he was there for a little bit, why don't I have any pictures? So I was super confused that, like, where was my dad at? As I start to get into my dad's stuff, like, I'm looking into things and I see letters from his friends that they sent him while he was in jail. And I see a letter specifically from a friend, and it says, thank you, David, so much. Like, I can't believe you sent me $20 from jail. Like, my dad sent somebody $20 while he was in jail. Okay. And I was like, oh my God, like, that is so nice of my dad. Like, he's over here taking care of people while he is in jail. You know what I mean? And this guy is so thankful. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe there's like a letter from my mom in here, or like from me. Like, maybe there's something, maybe he was worried about me. And is there something, that like was I in part of the question? Like, did you ever think about me? You know what I mean? And then I would see other letters from his mom, and I see that she would mention my sister Audrey and saying that she's okay. And I gave her this money that you sent over for snacks or food, but didn't mention anything about Jackie. And I was already born, but I don't understand. I didn't know why I wasn't mentioned or why I wasn't thought of. I don't know if I literally don't know the whole story. I really don't know the whole story about my life and stuff. I started getting super curious. As the weeks went by, it was such a hard month for me. From the day that my dad passed or the day that we laid him to rest, which is in December, I was so like wondering, like, wait a minute. Everyone kept telling me too. Everyone kept telling me, like, I'm so sorry for your loss about your dad. Like, he loved you very much. And, he cared about you so much, but, the addiction took over and he wasn't able to be there for you. I started to think, like, after seeing those letters and after seeing, like, there's no pictures of me with him, like, I felt so shameful. Like, this is like the most, like, and let me tell you something right now, guys. Not everybody deserves to know your vulnerability, and not everybody deserves to know your shame story, okay? So read the book on shame by Brene Brown. She teaches you a lot, but not everyone deserves to know that. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this, because I went to therapy. I've talked to my husband about it. He's the only one that knows how I truly felt about this whole situation, but I'm okay with sharing it with the world. Now, I felt so shameful. Like, one time I was in the shower. Well, actually, almost every day, it would make me sick that people would tell me, like, oh, he loved you a lot. Like, my mom would tell me, like, everybody. And I was like, wait, how do you know? Like, did my dad ever tell you guys, like, oh my God, I love Jackie. Like, I love Jackie. I love her. I am sad that I can't be there for her. Like, I started getting so sad. And I felt shameful because, like, Kenny, I can talk to him about anything. But I felt super shameful about this situation because he grew up with a mom and a dad, and he would never understand my experience. Like, he will never understand it. Like, all he can do is be there for me, which was okay, and that's obviously all I needed. But I felt shameful to share this with him. But I remember getting out of the shower and I'm crying and I'm sitting there and I'm like shaking and I'm telling Kenny, like, because Kenny would tell me too, like, oh, your dad loved you, like, because that's like something that you say to people, and I said, like, I think we were talking about it, and I said, how do you know he loved me? And then I started like getting angry. I was like, because I was never talked about. I have no pictures with my dad. I don't even feel like I was a thought process in his head. Like, I don't ever feel like I was important enough to be spoken about, And like, the shame part is that admitting that someone didn't love me, because I felt very loved as a child around everybody around me. Okay. Like my grandpa loved me, my grandma, my mom, obviously, like I was a very loved kid. So to know that like this person who's half of me, like potentially didn't love me, like broke me. And I like cried out to Kenny, and I'm just like, how do you know he loves me? Like, what if he doesn't? You know what I mean? Like, what if he only had a heart of gold for other people and not for me? And I would tell my mom, I said, I need you to tell me, like, what happened? Like, like, what do you mean he had a heart of gold? Like, what did he do for me? Because he was never there. He was never there. He was never there. I started getting like angry. And, like she would then tell me, like, he got us a place to stay and he was always so helpful. She's like, but the drugs, Jackie, like they got him, you know what I mean? Like it's an addiction, it's a disease. The little girl in me, like the grace that I had and the empathy that I had, like went out the window. Like I started becoming mad. So much so that I had planned to talk at his funeral, but I felt like I needed to know more about my dad before I could speak about him, because what I had written down for him was something really beautiful. And I needed to know that like my dad wasn't like a bad person. So I ran a background check on my dad. I looked up every court casing. I needed to know that whatever he went to jail for was because of his addiction and nothing else. I ended up doing that before I spoke at his funeral, because I wanted to make sure that the person that I was talking about is the person, or the person that I think I know, is going to reflect in these words, I think that was like the hardest part for me, is knowing like, does my dad love me? So one time, like at 10 o'clock at night, I messaged my cousin and I asked her, like, it was the most vulnerable thing for me. I had so much pride. I've never had to do this before in my life. I asked her, like, does my dad love me? Like, how do you know my dad loved me? She's like, oh, mija, he did. Like, he loved you very much, but the addiction took over. And I don't even think I replied to her, but I just needed to know, like, did my dad love me? From someone that's close to him. Like, did he love me? Because I'm hearing it from Kenny. I'm hearing it from my mom. Like, someone who has been with him. Like, I need to know, like, did he love me? Like, did he say, I love my daughter, Jackie? Like, how do you guys know that? Like, I just wanted to feel, I guess, like some type of love from him, because I felt like I had so much love for him. It was a really weird experience. So I think for me, after this, I start to realize, like, I think what hurt me even more is that I already have a daughter by now. I already have Penny, and my dad passed away, and I made it like my duty, my absolute duty, to make sure that I was not going to be with a man. I think that's like where my daddy issues come from, is that I pushed a lot of men away from me. I was in a relationship to marry. I wasn't in a relationship to date. When I met Kenny, I was like, okay, he is husband material, he is father material. I made it my duty that I was going to find someone that was not going to leave me and it was not going to abandon my kids, because I cannot put my child through what I went through. I don't want her to have, like, not that she can't have empathy for her father, because Kenny will make mistakes, I'll make mistakes. But I think what's the sad part is that, like, there's not a day that goes by that Kenny does not tell Penny that he loves her at least 10 times a day, 20 times a day. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm not sorry. I know that this topic has a lot of feelings. I'm not sorry for crying. I knew I was going to cry. I made it my duty that, I was going to find a man that wasn't going to leave, that wasn't going to abandon, and I was going to make sure of that. And this isn't to make anybody feel bad, okay? But I already grew up without a dad, and I knew what that feeling was like, and I didn't want to do that. At my dad's funeral, I said some really beautiful words that I 100% meant. His eulogy, I didn't do his eulogy. I just spoke about him, and it was really beautiful. And I forgive my dad. I really do. For me, there was a lot of questions that were unanswered in my life, and I wanted to know more. I went to therapy about it, and I said, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to know so much more about my dad and like what happened, and like, did my family know who I was? Like, was I this like random girl that showed up on a Tuesday? I wanted to know more, but I also didn't want to be hurt. So I chose not to ask questions. I chose not to ask my dad's side of the family anything regarding that, about how I grew up. I didn't want to know anymore if like my dad loved me or not, because I wanted to make peace with the situation. And I did. I said, I forgive my dad. He had an illness and he was sick. And addiction, unfortunately, got to him. And it beat him. And I didn't want to know more than that, because I felt like the more I knew, the more I felt hurt. And I didn't want to feel hurt. I wanted to feel peace. In another life, my dad is a good dad. In another life, my dad is taking his granddaughter to the mountains and learning how to ride a horse and singing with her and being silly and funny. And in another life, he told me he loved me 10 times a day. In another life, we were close. But in this life, I have to accept what it is. And I've accepted it. I mentioned this before, that I never felt sorry for myself as a little girl. I felt like I was okay with a lot of things. I think I cry more because I have a daughter of my own, and I would never want her to go through this. I'm sorry for those who have or is experiencing the same thing as me. I don't know what else to do besides having grace and just being at peace. And I do feel at peace because it doesn't keep me up at night anymore. I am curious, but not curious like I was before. So thank you guys for listening. I know it was a really vulnerable topic and you guys saw a lot of tears from me, but I am going to answer some of your questions. Well, first question is, I only got a couple, by the way. So how did you heal and forgive him? How did it affect you in motherhood? So listen, I don't think everybody has the same experience. I'm not one to say that you need to forget the hurt that people have caused you. I forgive because I truly believe that forgiveness is an act for myself. It is not for them. It is for me to be healed and to feel good about living every day. There's no point in me hating somebody, and hating somebody, especially half of me, unless they did something extremely cruel. I went to therapy, and that really helped me talk about my situation. I just chose to forgive him because there's nothing else. My dad's not here to defend himself. Not that he can. Obviously he messed up, but my dad is no longer here to answer the questions that I want from him. So I had no choice but to forgive. Like, how would I get his side of the story too? Advice you wish you could share with your younger self. You know what? I think I wouldn't give myself any advice of my younger self, because I feel like if I didn't have the empathy that I have, or that I even had growing up, I would be mad at the world. I would be angry, and I don't want to be angry. I want to still have grace for people. I want to have empathy for people. And I'm not saying that everybody deserves it. There are people, like, you should not be getting screwed, a million times because you have so much empathy. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm happy. Like, that's one of the things that I love about myself, is that I am extremely empathetic, and I can see a perspective from somebody else, or I can see a different perspective from somebody else. How did it affect me in motherhood? I don't know. That's a really good question. I know that it affected me because I wanted, a good husband, and I wanted to be in a relationship that, that was committed to each other. I think it's helped me in motherhood in a good way. It affected me in a good way because I'm not like, I told you this before, and I would just shut people down. Like, if I did not like the way that you were, if I didn't like anything, I'd just cut you off. Like, I didn't want that. Like, you can't do that in a marriage, like, you can't just be like, I'm going to walk away from you, and I really made sure that, like, marriage was a really big thing for me. And if anything, I just feel bad. I just feel bad for younger me. It's the first time I ever felt bad for me. Advice you give someone who has a strained or distant relationship with their dad. Everything is circumstantial to me. I don't think that everybody lives the same life. I don't think that the same advice is universal. My dad obviously had this disease. He was sick. And I don't think that he was sick that bad in his early years. I was born in 1994, and he didn't start getting into real bad trouble, I think, into 2005. So there's a huge gap there where I feel like he could have been involved. And that was one of my issues too. Where, like, why weren't you there? Why didn't you try? Where was the effort? I don't know. Like, it shouldn't have been me rolling up to your house. Like, it should have been, you coming over here. Unless that did happen, I don't remember it. But it's not circumstantial, because I know a lot of people that have dads and their dad just never showed up to their game on Sunday. They're like, after saying that, they said that they would show up and their dad never did. That's the worst part. I think I was better off because my dad just wasn't there. So I didn't have somebody that was in and out. I didn't have empty promises. I was still hurt about it. But my advice is to go to therapy, 100%. Go to therapy. Talk about your feelings. Find a good therapist too. Shop around. Like, you shouldn't, like, if you have good insurance, shop around. But I 100% believe that, I believe everything is circumstantial. I really do. And I'm sorry that like, it's not good advice, but have grace if you can. Forgive for yourself, not for others. Be empathetic. A lot of our parents, this is their first time raising a child too. And I'm not saying that abandoning your child is the right thing to do, because it's not. I wish I had more advice for you, but everything to me is circumstantial, and advice is not a universal experience for me. And just have grace if you can. If you're in a situation where you can have grace, have grace. If you're in a situation where you can be empathetic, be empathetic. However, if you're getting stomped to the ground, don't take that either. And you know what advice I would give? If your dad is alive right now, if your mother is alive and you have a strained relationship with them, ask them questions if you're able to. Ask them questions, like sit down, maybe ask more questions and say like, hey, why weren't you there? Like, I want to have, if they're able and open to have that conversation with you, I think you 100% should. Like, I want to know, why weren't you there? What happened? I think that's like extremely important. That's one thing I would change. Knowing this now, and I was not as curious in 2016 when my dad was better, but I wish that day at McDonald's, or the other times that I hung out with him, I talked to him more about things. And I wanted to get his perspective. And also too, like, what happened to you? Where did things go wrong? I kind of wanted to understand him as a human, and I can't do that now. So that's my advice to you. Guys, thank you for listening. I know this was a super long episode, but if you made it this far, I really appreciate you. And I hope to see you on the next episode.